Have you ever sat at your desk, eyes blank, staring at the soft glow of a screen while something deep inside you whispers, "This can't be it. This can't be my life"? Not in a dramatic way, not like the movies, but in that dull, persistent ache that lives behind your ribs. That quiet grief that creeps in while you're pretending to care about a deadline. That sinking feeling in the shower before work, when you just want time to slow down so you don't have to go back. Every day, millions wake to the same feeling, dragging themselves out of bed, not because they're excited to build something beautiful, but because they're afraid of falling behind. They sit in traffic, scroll through morning emails. They nod in meetings, answer questions, complete tasks. They silence their inner knowing in exchange for external approval. We call it making a living, but for many it feels more like negotiating with death. Because you're not just trading time for money. You're trading your essence, your energy, your ideas, your attention span, your sense of wonder for survival. And at some point, you have to ask, survival for what? To afford rest you don't have time to enjoy? To buy things that only numb what you're not allowed to feel? To prove to others that you're doing well while your inner world quietly crumbles? The 9 to 5 has become a performance, a ritual, a role we all learn to play. Wake up, work, come home, numb out, repeat. We're told it's responsible. We're told it's honorable. But what if it's just convenient? What if it's just control? What if the system doesn't serve you, but feeds on you? You weren't born to be a cog. You weren't born to fill a spreadsheet or hit quarterly goals. You were born with curiosity, with fire, with soul. And somewhere along the way, someone decided that was dangerous. So they taught you to color inside the lines, to sit still, to obey, to please. They taught you to trade why for yes, sir, to suppress your chaos, your questions, your wildness. You were never supposed to love the job. You were just supposed to be grateful to have one. The system is smart like that. It packages captivity as stability. It turns survival into success. It makes you believe that freedom is irresponsible, that dreaming is immature, that rest is laziness. But here's what they don't want you to realize. You're not tired because you're weak. You're tired because your soul is suffocating in a life that does not belong to you. It's not the labor. It's the lifelessness, the routine that flattens your days into gray sameness, the dull predictability of meetings, memos, and meaningless metrics. They don't just want your time. They want your mind, your attention, your sense of urgency, your precious, non-refundable one life. It's not the job that's the problem. It's the culture that surrounds it. It's the forced smiles, the fake small talk, the "how was your weekend?" from someone who doesn't care. It's the pressure to pretend, to perform happiness, to feign ambition, to keep the machine running even when your spirit is bleeding. The truth? Many people are grieving and don't even know it. Grieving the version of themselves that never got to grow. Grieving their younger self's dreams. Discarded, disrespected, dissolved. Grieving the joy they only feel on weekends, if at all, but they can't name it. Because grief requires permission, and capitalism doesn't give you that. Capitalism wants you to consume, not contemplate, to scroll, not question, to perform, not feel. So we medicate our misery. We call it a bad day. We self-soothe with retail therapy, with caffeine, with wine, with distractions. Anything to avoid that deep knowing. This isn't working, and still, we stay. Because fear is a powerful warden. Fear of failure, fear of instability, fear of judgment, fear of becoming invisible. We silence ourselves to survive, and slowly we die in ways no autopsy will ever detect. We become ghosts in our own lives, smiling at birthday parties while wondering what happened to our spark. Showing up to work but leaving our spirit at home. We become masters of pretending. Pretending this is fine, pretending we're okay, pretending we're lucky. But the body knows, the soul knows, the tight chest, the tired eyes, the Sunday dread. They're all messages, alarm bells from the universe, calling you back to yourself. Because underneath it all, something still burns. Some stubborn ember refuses to go out. It's the reason you clicked on this video. It's the reason you've kept watching. It's the reason you feel something rising in you right now. That ember, that's you, the real you. Not the employee, not the role, not the mask, the wild one, the creative one, the one who remembers what it felt like to dream without apology, to play, to wonder, to want more. And that remembering, that is dangerous to a system that depends on your forgetfulness. Because once you remember, you start to question. And once you question, you start to wake up. And waking up is the first act of rebellion. Because when you wake up, you stop complying. You stop contorting yourself to fit inside a life that doesn't fit. You stop giving your best hours to people who don't care about your soul. You stop settling for crumbs and calling it comfort. Waking up doesn't mean quitting your job tomorrow. It doesn't mean throwing everything away. It means this. You stop pretending that the cage is home. You start paying attention to the ache in your chest. You start listening to the voice you buried beneath productivity. You start asking better questions. Not, how do I get ahead? But what am I racing toward and why? Not, how do I fit in? But what would it look like to finally feel free? Because you can't create a life you love if you're still trying to survive the one that's killing you. You can't heal in the same system that made you sick. And you can't fully live if you're still afraid to disappoint the people who benefit from your self-abandonment. So here's the truth. If you've ever felt like you're meant for more, you are. If you've ever felt like your spirit is shrinking, it is. If you've ever looked around and thought, this can't be all there is, then you're already ahead of the game. Because you see what most refuse to. You see the cracks. You feel the rot beneath the surface. You notice the spiritual starvation dressed up as professionalism. And you've had enough. That is not weakness. That is clarity. That is strength. If this chapter stirred something in you, don't ignore it. This isn't just a video, it's a mirror, a reflection of the part of you that refuses to die quietly. Stick around, because in the next chapter, we're going to explore how this system was built, who it serves, who it crushes, and why it was never designed with your soul in mind. If you're ready to stop surviving and start remembering who you really are, like, subscribe, share this with someone whose light is flickering. Because we're not here to go through the motions, we're here to reclaim the fire. And this is just the beginning. Have you ever wondered how many people die with their best years buried beneath someone else's expectations? How many souls drag themselves across a lifetime hoping that one day, just one day, it'll all pay off? That the sacrifice will make sense? That the pain will be rewarded? We've all heard the story. Maybe it was whispered to us at bedtime. Maybe it was carved into us at school, in church, at the dinner table. Work hard. Keep your head down. Play by the rules. Do your time. Sacrifice now, and later you'll prosper. Later, later, later. But what if later never comes? What if that promise is a carrot on a stick, always visible, always just out of reach? What if we're all sprinting on a treadmill toward a fantasy, while the real life, our real life, is quietly slipping through our fingers? Because let's tell the truth. Many of us were not raised on freedom. We were raised on fear. Fear of being broke. Fear of being lazy. Fear of being judged. So we learned to equate exhaustion with virtue, suffering with success, obedience with safety. They told us to earn our worth, to grind for love, to hustle for rest, to sacrifice joy until the work is done. But here's the secret no one wants to say out loud. The work is never done. Not in a system built on endless productivity. Not in a culture that profits from your burnout. Not when you're taught to mistake struggle for purpose. This isn't just about jobs. This is about conditioning. About a cultural sickness passed down like an heirloom, generation after generation, telling us to wear our pain like a badge of honor. My father was a farmer. He woke with the sun, sometimes before it. Calloused hands, cracked nails. He built his life with labor, real labor. He did what good men were supposed to do. He worked hard. He didn't complain. He gave everything for his family. And still, he never found peace. Even after a lifetime of effort, the fruits of his labor were never enough to buy him rest. Even in his final years, ownership, ease, and freedom stayed just out of reach, as if they were luxuries reserved for someone else. And the system would call that his fault, would say he didn't hustle hard enough, didn't invest early enough, didn't play the game right. But what if the game was rigged from the start? What if it was never designed to reward people like him? That's not personal failure. That's structural betrayal. And it's not just his story. It's a pattern, repeated in so many of our families, our parents, our grandparents. They believed what they were told, that sacrifice would lead to security, that struggle was the price of dignity. And for a time, maybe that story worked. Maybe it was true enough. But today, people work 2, 3 jobs and still can't pay rent. People dedicate decades to careers and retire with nothing. People sacrifice their health, their family time, their dreams, and still lie awake at night wondering why peace feels so far away. The lie of hard work equals prosperity is killing us. Not quickly, not loudly, but slowly, quietly, like a poison in the well we keep drinking from. And the worst part? We blame ourselves. We internalize the failure. We say we're not trying hard enough. We say we need to man up, push through, stay grateful. But what if you're not lazy? What if you're just disillusioned? What if your spirit is simply rebelling against a system that feeds off your time but starves your soul? Because this system doesn't care how hard you work. It doesn't care how much you sacrifice. It only cares that you keep moving, keep producing, keep consuming. You're not a person to the system. You're a unit, a number, a resource. And when your body breaks down, when your mind frays, when your soul goes silent, it will replace you without a second thought. Hard work does not guarantee prosperity. It does not guarantee happiness. It doesn't even guarantee basic dignity anymore. Let that sink in. How many people work until their bodies collapse? How many single mothers grind for decades and still die in debt? How many elders live their final years in rented rooms, still budgeting for groceries, still waiting for the peace they were promised? This isn't just broken. It's cruel. Because this myth, this idea that suffering equals success, doesn't just hurt the ones who live by it, it infects the next generation too. We pass it on like gospel. We tell our children to sit still, to follow rules, to sacrifice now for a life they may never live. We warn them not to dream too loud, not to rest too long, not to trust their own rhythm. And so the cycle continues. Because if we don't question it, if we don't challenge it, another generation will wake up one day wondering why life feels like a cage they were born into. And they'll think it's their fault. They'll think something's wrong with them for feeling tired, for wanting joy, for craving more than just survival. But nothing is wrong with them. Nothing is wrong with you. You're not broken. You're not ungrateful. You're not entitled. You're awake. And awakening is not easy. It means looking at your life and your lineage with honest eyes. It means grieving the myth. It means letting go of the dream they sold you so you can build one that's real. Because the truth is, you were not born to suffer for scraps of security. You were not born to prove your worth through pain. You were not born to be a cog in a machine that never stops. You were born to live, to create, to love, to rest, to feel wonder, to be, not just do. And rest is not a reward you earn through exhaustion. Rest is your birthright. Joy is not a prize at the finish line. Joy is the compass. And your time, your attention, your presence, those are not currencies for the marketplace. They are sacred. The idea that hard work equals prosperity, it's a myth forged in factories, polished in boardrooms, and sold to the masses like salvation. But you don't have to buy it anymore. You can opt out. Not by quitting your job today, but by reclaiming your mind. By rethinking what success means to you. By redefining what a rich life actually looks like. Because real prosperity isn't just money in the bank. It's time you control. It's rest without guilt. It's joy that doesn't need to be earned. It's love that doesn't require performance. It's knowing that your worth was never meant to be measured in output. It's building a life that feels like yours, even in small, quiet ways. It starts with noticing, with unlearning, with whispering truths to yourself when the world screams lies. Truths like, I don't need to be exhausted to be valuable. I don't need to suffer to deserve love. I don't need to prove anything to be enough. That is rebellion. That is power. And no system can survive too long once enough people start to remember who they are. If you're tired of carrying the weight of expectations that were never yours, if you're starting to question the rhythm you were told to follow, don't shrink. Don't go back to sleep. This is your wake-up call, your invitation to break the cycle. Because rebellion doesn't always start with fire. Sometimes it starts with a whisper, a single act of defiance, one creative breath, and from there, it becomes a movement, a life, a legacy. Stick around, because in the next chapter we're going to explore that spark, the moment where everything changes, the first crack in the illusion, and how to begin creating a life that actually feels like yours. If this message resonated with you, don't keep it to yourself. Like, subscribe, share. We're not just here to survive the system, we're here to outgrow it. What comes to mind when you hear the word rebellion? Is it a fist in the air, a march through crowded streets, a dramatic break from everything you've ever known? That version exists. But there's another kind of rebellion, quieter, slower, just as powerful. It doesn't make headlines. It doesn't always look brave from the outside, but it is, because it begins inside you. It begins the moment you stop pretending that you're okay. The moment you admit, even just to yourself, this life doesn't fit me. That's rebellion, because the world wants you to stay small, to stay manageable, to play the role you were given. You were trained to follow a script, to be polite, productive, agreeable, to do what's expected, to silence your intuition, to swallow your dreams. And for a while, maybe that worked. Maybe you got good at playing the part, smiling on command, checking all the boxes, being the reliable one, the strong one, the successful one. But what happens when you realize the role isn't yours? What happens when your soul starts itching in the costume you've worn for too long? That's when the rebellion begins. And no, it doesn't always look like fire. Sometimes it looks like stillness, like sitting in silence and finally hearing your own voice, like letting the truth bubble to the surface, even when it terrifies you. Sometimes rebellion is not a battle cry, but a whisper. There's more for me than this. That whisper can change everything. It can guide your feet away from what's expected, towards something uncertain, but real. Something hard, but yours. Because there's no harder life than the one that demands you bare yourself to be accepted. And there's no more beautiful life than the one where you get to be fully, unapologetically you. That's the path I chose. I left my job, not because I had a perfect plan, not because I was fearless, but because I couldn't keep trading my spirit for a paycheck. I couldn't keep dimming my light just to survive in someone else's story. It wasn't an easy choice. It's still not easy, but I had to choose my kind of hard, because it's hard to build something from nothing. But it's also hard to rot in a job that never sees you, hard to wake up every day and pretend, hard to silence the scream in your chest for the sake of appearances. And eventually you have to choose. Which hard leads to life? Which hard leads to death? So I chose to create, to speak, to begin this channel, not because I knew what I was doing, but because I knew I couldn't keep doing what I was doing. And maybe you're in that place now. Maybe you've done everything right, worked hard, been dependable, showed up, and still your soul is starving. Your creativity withers in the shadows. Your joy feels like a distant memory. You don't need to be in crisis to feel this way. Sometimes the scariest thing is how normal your life looks, how convincing the mask has become, how easy it is to fake contentment, and how few people ever question it, but you feel it, that ache, that restlessness, that quiet question, is this all there is? If you felt that, you're not alone. You're not broken. You're not ungrateful. you're awake. And that awakening, that's the beginning of your rebellion. Because rebellion isn't about chaos, it's about truth. And sometimes the most radical thing you can do in a world built on performance is tell the truth about how you feel. So what does rebellion look like for you? Maybe it's making a video that no one sees, but it's your voice. Maybe it's writing a journal entry you're scared to read back. Maybe it's painting something strange, something honest. Maybe it's walking away from a good job that's killing your spirit. Maybe it's saying no when you've spent your life saying yes. Maybe it's saying yes to something you've always wanted, but were too afraid to try. It doesn't have to be loud. It doesn't have to be seen. It just has to be real. Because here's the truth. The revolution you're looking for out there starts in here, in your choices, in your boundaries, in your voice, in your ability to look at your life and say, no more pretending. I choose me. That's what I did. And no, the path hasn't been smooth. There are days I doubt myself, days I question whether I made the right choice, days I miss the security, even if it came with a cost. But every time I sit down to create, every time I share something raw and real, every time I connect with someone like you, who feels this too, I remember why I left. I remember who I am. And I feel free even when I'm scared. Because freedom isn't the absence of fear. It's the willingness to move anyway, to live anyway, to show up anyway. And freedom doesn't require that you burn everything down. It asks that you stop building your life on someone else's blueprint, that you pause long enough to hear your own heartbeat again, that you clear enough space in your life to let your soul breathe. And from that breath, something beautiful begins to grow. A new rhythm, a new identity, a new possibility. It won't come all at once. There's no magic door, no single moment where everything clicks, but it starts when you stop betraying yourself. One small act at a time. Write one line, take one photo, make one video, say one no, say one yes, rest, speak, share, create. That's how it starts. You build a tiny space where your spirit feels safe again, where it doesn't have to perform, where it doesn't have to apologize, where it doesn't have to explain itself. And from that space, your life will begin to bloom in unexpected ways, in quiet moments, in bold decisions, in soft mornings and wild nights. Rebellion doesn't always look like war. Sometimes it looks like returning to yourself, to the version of you who used to believe in magic, who used to dream with their whole heart, who used to play without shame, who didn't need permission to be fully alive. That version of you is not gone. They're waiting. Beneath the layers of should and must and what will they think, they're still there. And every act of honesty, every moment of courage, every whisper of rebellion is a step back to them. So here's your invitation. Don't wait for a crisis. Don't wait until you burn out. Don't wait for someone to give you permission. Start now, right here, with what you have, with what you know. Start small, but start true. If this chapter stirred something in you, don't brush it aside. Don't rationalize it away. Don't shove it into a drawer labeled later. This is the moment you stop betraying yourself, the moment you choose your kind of hard, the moment you begin writing your own story, not the one you were handed. Stick with me, because in the next chapter, we'll explore what happens when you finally let go of the script and start creating a life that belongs to you. A life built not from fear, but from fire, not from habit, but from hope, not from survival, but from sovereignty. Like, subscribe, share this with someone who's ready to wake up. Let's create a new world, one real voice at a time. Cracking the code, how to use the system without letting it use you. The supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting. Sun Tzu. What if the system isn't something you need to destroy? What if it's something you can simply outgrow, outcreate, outwit? For most of us, the only narrative we've been handed is one of war. The system is the enemy, and we are its victims. So we're told to resist, to fight, to burn it down, and that instinct is valid. When you wake up inside a machine that was never designed for your soul, Your first impulse is rage. It's fire. It's I want out now. But here's a truth most don't realize until they've exhausted themselves. When you fight the system with force, the system wins because it knows how to absorb resistance. It knows how to turn your rebellion into spectacle, your anger into data, your efforts into revenue. The system is like a black hole. It doesn't care what you throw at it. It just swallows. It feeds on friction. It profits from your protest. But there's something the system doesn't know how to handle, something it was never designed to process: stillness, awareness, creative strategy. Because this system, whether we're talking about capitalism, culture, or the endless scroll of algorithmic life, was built on distraction. It needs you to react. It needs you to engage, to argue, to rage, to strive. Because the moment you go silent, the moment you start paying attention, the moment you stop playing by its rules, it starts to lose power. This is the quiet rebellion, not the one that screams, the one that slips out the back door. Like Tai Chi, it doesn't meet force with force. It redirects. It flows around the weight. It listens for the rhythm and steps out of sync. This is how you crack the code. You don't fight the machine. You stop feeding it. You stop giving it the two things it needs to survive: your attention and your energy. And instead, you reclaim them, slowly, intentionally, one breath at a time, one small act of defiance at a time. That's what I've been doing, not quitting everything at once, not disappearing into the woods, not lighting my old life on fire, but choosing my exits carefully, choosing my focus, choosing how I show up and why. One video at a time, one truth at a time, one viewer at a time, not for likes, not for clout, but because I couldn't keep pretending that the old game made sense. The real rebellion wasn't in leaving the system, it was in creating my own, because that's what the system fears most: people who build something outside of it, not dependent on trends, not seeking permission, not waiting for validation. Creators, builders, strategists, alchemists, people who see the system clearly, not as a god, not as an enemy, but as a tool, something to learn, something to leverage, something to outgrow. Because if you understand the code, you can write your own. Instead of drowning in algorithms, you study them, not to obey them, but to dance with them, to use what works and discard what doesn't. Instead of quitting everything cold turkey, you shift your center of gravity, little by little, until the job becomes the side hustle and your soul's work becomes the core. Instead of needing approval, you create because it hurts not to, because you have something to say, because you know that if you stay silent, the system wins. And when enough people start doing this, the system starts to crack, because it was never designed to hold awakened people. It was designed for compliance, for consumers, for ghosts in human skin. But the moment you reclaim your time, the moment you stop scrolling and start sculpting, the moment you stop performing and start expressing, the machine glitches, because you're not fuel anymore. You're fire. You're not the product. You're the producer. And that shift, that's power. It's not just political. It's not just economic. It's spiritual, because it's a shift in attention, in presence, in intention. The system is built to keep you in survival mode, running on autopilot, distracted, disconnected. But when you pause, when you breathe, when you notice, you see the illusion for what it is, and you begin to step into something deeper, a life that feels rooted, a life that moves at your own pace, a life that feeds your spirit instead of feeding on it. This doesn't require a perfect plan. It doesn't require quitting your job tomorrow or deleting every app on your phone. It begins with one choice: I will not live like this anymore. And from that choice, you begin to move differently. You begin to ask better questions. You begin to make art again. You begin to rest without guilt. You begin to share your story, not because it's polished, but because it's true. And the system, it loses its grip, not because you fought it, but because you stopped believing it was your only option. You cracked the code. And the code was never about money, never about fame, never about followers. It was about your attention, your energy, your presence. That's what it was always after. And now, it's yours again. You don't owe your life to the machine. You don't owe your creativity to the algorithm. You don't owe your worth to your productivity. You're not a brand. You're not a resource. You're not a performance. You're a soul, a creator, a sovereign being. And when you start acting like it, when you start living from that place, the world around you begins to bend. You start attracting people who see you. You start building work that moves people. You start waking up with energy instead of dread, because now you're creating from wholeness, not fear, not pressure, not scarcity. You're building something human in a world that worships the artificial. And that, my friend, is revolutionary. So if you're ready to stop being food for a machine, to stop letting your life get siphoned off in the name of the way things are, here's your invitation. No one's coming to save you. No algorithm, no job, no brand, no guru. But you can save yourself. One act of creation, one act of defiance, one moment of presence at a time. You don't have to blow up your life. You just have to start reclaiming it. From the scroll, from the script, from the lie that says you need to earn your worth. Your worth is not something you earn. It's something you uncover by creating, by connecting, by stepping back into the driver's seat of your own story. And the beautiful thing? You're not alone. There are others, right now, all over the world, cracking the code, rewriting the rules, choosing their kind of hard, not out of bitterness, but out of love. Love for what life could be, love for truth, love for the future. So if this message stirred something in you, don't dismiss it. Don't file it away. Don't scroll past. Let it sit. Let it land. Let it change something. What comes after the script is burned, after the algorithm stops running your day, after you remember who you are? That's where we'll go in a future video. But for now, tell me in the comments, what's your next small rebellion? Leave the phrase, I choose my kind of hard, so I know you're with me, and so others know they're not alone. Because we don't need another war. We need another way. Let's build it together.